Áine Flynn. I'm the head of the Graduate Studies Office here in UCC, and we're going to talk you through how to become a PhD here in UCC. Hopefully it'll inspire you and help you on the next steps of your educational and life journey. So I'm just going to go through the agenda to give you a sense of what we're going to cover today. This one, is it?
Forward to bottom one, maybe.
No? Yeah, there we go. So we're going to start with an introduction from our Dean of Doctoral Studies, Dr Orla Lynch. She's going to give you an overview. And then we're going to move on to the two of the Vice Deans here in UCC, Dr Monahan and Dr Eric Moore, are going to talk us through how to find funding. Our idea, pointers, signposting about finding funding, your lead supervisor, and how to write a research proposal. So just to say, Barry's from the point of view, I suppose, of the humanities area, College of Arts, Celtic Studies and Social Sciences, and Eric is from Science, College of Science, Engineering and Food Science. We're then going to move on to myself, and I'm just going to give you a quick overview of how to apply for a PhD. And then we have our lovely current PhD students and a recent graduate who are going to talk a little bit about how their own experiences, how they found funding, how they found their lead supervisor, and what the experience has brought to them. And it might just give you some ideas and help you make decisions for the future. And then we'll open it up to questions and answers. Okay, so I'm going to hand over to Orla. Great.
That's one.
That's one, yeah. Thanks, Áine. Welcome, everybody. My role is to oversee the strategic development of doctoral education at UCC. We've heard talk there about PhDs and doctoral education. Doctoral education means a PhD, an MD, a professional doctorate, any of the level 10 qualifications. So when we're talking about doctoral education, we're covering the span of all those things. Doctoral education is a huge part of life at UCC. We're a research-intensive university, and so PhDs are the kind of seeds of that experience within the university. PhD students and doctoral students are the centre of the national level strategic plan. They're seen as the way the economy will grow. They're seen as foundational to attracting business. They're seen as the seeds of the knowledge economy. So PhD students is not just about your project and being part of a small team in UCC. You really are part of a national agenda. And we've recently seen a commitment to doctoral education through the development of new funding programs and enhanced funding programs that we haven't seen in the past. There's a very long way to go yet to make PhD salaries livable salaries, and we recognise that, but it's very, very positive that things have moved nationally towards an increased stipend. So when I say a stipend is when you effectively get funding to do your research. So if you get a government award, you'll get your fees paid, and you'll get a 25,000 stipend if you are awarded. It's a competitive process. I want to tell you a little bit about what it looks like to do a PhD in UCC. We have about 1,500 PhD students on our books, and they're across all the colleges. So just to give you an idea, so CACs, the Arts, Humanities, Social Sciences, have 350, Business and Law, a little bit less, 105, Sex, Science, they're 551, Medicine, Health, 248. So that's the kind of balance of students that we have in the university. Disciplinary norms will dictate whether or not people go on to do PhDs. You see less PhDs in law, for example, than you might in chemistry, depending on the reasons why people want to do it, what stage in their career they're at. So we have a range of people coming to do a PhD. They can be new graduates, they can be just out of an arts degree, they can be just out of a master's in chemistry or an eminent in French. Then we have people who retire, and as a retirement opportunity, they come and do a PhD. So we have all ranges of people. We have practitioners doing PhDs. So we have, for example, a PhD in clinical psychology. Those individuals are effectively hired by the HSC to do the research. They then become practitioners working as clinical psychologists in the HSC. We have practitioner doctorates in dentistry. We have education PhDs. And then we have what's called the structured PhD. So the structured PhD is what you'd expect as the standard PhD. It's when you come in, you do 4 years of research on a chosen topic with a supervisory team, and you do a number of modules. So that's the normal process. I just wanted to give you an idea of what's the reality of doing a PhD. You can see here how long it takes people to graduate. So 4.3 to 4.8 years. And that's across the board. That's fairly standard nationally. So I think to be very aware, that's the commitment you're talking about. Now the 0.3 there might be when you're waiting to graduate, so you can aim around the 4 years, but that's the reality of the commitment. So it is a big time commitment. And this is another interesting figure, and I know both the Vice Deans will talk a little bit about funding in a minute. Depending on which college you're in, depending on your research area, the chance of you getting funded is variable. So about 20% of arts, humanities, social science people get funded. You can see their stipend is a little bit lower, okay? SEFs, on average, 83% of those individuals are funded. Their stipend is up now at 19,000. That was last year. That's going to go up to 25, okay, in the vast majority of cases. Tax will come up a little bit, but not an awful lot. Business and law, 33%, bearing in mind they have lower numbers. So it's somewhat easier for them to have 33% funded. Theirs should be a little bit higher now, again, edging towards the 25 at this stage. And medicine and health have half of their students on a stipend. And again, theirs will go close to 25,000 this coming year. So I suppose that's the very harsh reality of the funding landscape. So if you look at who are the funders out there, this is the UCC picture of who funds in UCC, but this would be fairly representative nationally. SFI and IRC have come together to become Research Ireland, so they've amalgamated. So you can see the vast majority, nearly 400 of our students are funded by Research Ireland, so that's a stipend, 25,000 plus your fees. Internal stipends, they're more variable, so they're the stipends that might be 5,000 or they might be 15,000, so they can be of lower value, and they usually are dependent on who your department is. Maybe your department has some spare funding or project funding, but these are not very formal and not readily available and really can't rely on their availability. Teagasc is a big funder, so there's 56 people involved there. The EU, a lot of the time that's grants, so a supervisor might win 3 million from the EU to do a project on AI. They would hire you on then as a student on that project and you'd be funded by the EU. HRB, the Health Research Board, DAFN, Eli Lilly, Nestle, Environmental Protection Agency, Bank of Ireland, Enterprise Ireland, Independent, and a few others. So that's the picture of who gives funding. Occasionally we have funding from philanthropic sources. For example, we have one PhD funded scholarship for an individual who came in via the Access route. So if anybody did Access as undergrad, you're eligible to apply for that. But on the whole, this is where the money will come from. So that's a few of the hopefully useful facts about the situation of doing a PhD in UCC. The reality in terms of doing full-time or part-time PhD is another thing to bear in mind. A PhD is absolutely a full-time undertaking. Some people do work and do a PhD part-time. It takes an awful long time, it takes an awful lot of effort. It's a very difficult thing to do, not impossible, but the reality is you need to be able to dedicate 4 years to do a PhD. There's ways of earning money within the university. If you are a PhD student, a lot of the time you'll be demonstrating. You might get teaching hours in your department. You might get tutorial hours in your department. They're small sums of money, but they are a work contract, so that's one method that's available for additional funding. But other than that, seeking to do some of the formal funding applications that Eric and Barry will talk about there in a minute is the best way forward. I'm going to hang around for the hour so I can answer any questions you have afterwards, and we'll keep going. All right? Thanks, everybody.
Thanks, Orla. I'm going to hand over to Barry now.
Okay. I'll try and use Eric's. Yeah, so we'll start the slideshow. I'll try and use Eric's Zapper, but it'll probably be disobedient. So I'll kind of keep the pace as best I can with that which Orla has set. I should say from the outset, though, quite honestly, that, as you'll have seen from the figures there, you'll see that CACS is the least well catered to in terms of funding, unfortunately. And it's something that probably, for those of you strongly considering a career roughly in the ballpark where you're starting your PhD, whether it's academic or outside of that, it's going to be a battle that you have consistently in the arts and humanities. You are shouting not only for your particular subject field, your area of passion and expertise, but you are largely making a wider case for how these things are evaluated socially, where their value is and how they're positioned there. So I say that with a slight apology, but also hopefully with words of encouragement. There's nobody going to lie about the fact that arts and humanities students are the least well supported financially. What's there is small, but nevertheless the competition is interestingly robust in that you have constantly a fight to ensure that your back is covered, that you can make way financially. And that's no harm. The idea of defence starts at the beginning, and it ends this process with what we call the defence of your PhD, of your thesis. So the idea that you're constantly asked to ask yourself about the validity and importance of what you're doing, to formulate that in words that can compel other people to understand and support you, is probably no harm. It's not an ideal situation, but perhaps it's a consequence of the way it works that can really work in your favour. I'll take you very quickly through the landscape. CACS, we call it CACS, it's probably not the most glorious title of it, but we call it CACS in England because that's what we'd be saying every time we went to every meeting. We're 10 schools, 33 departments, 463 academic research supervised staff. The odds are a little bit, this postgraduate researchers kind of includes our PG numbers generally, so you'll have seen that Orla's PhD numbers are a little bit smaller. Even though the whole college is divided into 10 schools, pretty much aligned with the subjects of the departments in those, we are the graduate school. So I represent the graduate school at things like this. And just to tell you what that is, because it's a very strong and important aspect of what UCC offers you as PhD students. So just to tell you a little bit about this, we participate in this kind of thing, the graduate school. So our title is graduate school, and although there are another 10 schools, we're slightly different in that we're kind of an umbrella for pretty much all of the postgraduates in the college. And we act in an important way representing you as a contact point, and these are the kind of things we do. So we're involved in induction days and open days. We have representation on the first day. You have a major meeting with everybody who starts a PhD with you. We offer ongoing support mechanisms. One of the things you probably will have started to learn or experience is that it is a very lonely, long-distance run. The PhD is one that has so many challenges externally from your lives, so many things get in the way, so many things are a part of that, that we are sensitive to not only are you dealing with those, and also all of the internal stuff. Everything from, I was talking to somebody recently that the acronyms are enough. I don't know, what's a BSc, what's a PWU? I haven't a clue what all this language is. Even the tiniest things like that can really get in your way. What we're here to do is to make the pathway through for you as pleasant and easy an experience as possible. And we do that one-to-one at every possible opportunity. We provide relevant training. As Orla said recently in a meeting, the induction days are incredible opportunities for you to come in within the first few weeks of you starting, meet representatives from actually the whole university, the support teams, the various different teams that are there to get you through and provide support services for you. But that's in such an intense period of about 3 hours that you walk away and your head is spinning. You deserve a PhD if you survive the induction day, to be honest. So what we have actually is this module that's designed to stretch that experience out over about 8 to 10 weeks, where we bring you step by step through as many aspects of starting the journey. We take you through that. We give you tips. You meet us, which is really good. You meet each other, and we facilitate contact. It's over 8 weeks, but it kind of stretches over 12 in terms of the learning curve. And we just make sure that everything is on track for you, that you're not completely lost or feeling alone. We help with various funding schemes, limited and all as they are, and I'll tell you a little bit about those in a minute. And we also facilitate various contacts between you and different university and college level teams and bodies that it's interesting or important for you to know about. And I've just listed a few of those there. but we deal with problems and difficulties along the way which inevitably arise over a 4-year project. It's highly unlikely it'll be plain sailing all the way. So we're there just to let you know you're not alone, and the kind of things you're dealing with are things that we can handle with you. Okay, that's very, very important. We have to do that. Let's get really, really clinically business-like about this. Because we are so unattractive in terms of the glorious funding we can offer, we have to do something, and we have to do something well and exceptionally in line with what we promise to offer you and we know you need. And I would stand over this, and I would stand over this in front of colleagues who know the kind of work we do. What we will have for you as a PhD student in this college, and Eric will talk to you this afternoon, is a very, very, very strong system that has you at its centre, okay? And I promise that, and I'll stand over that, in all of the exceptional services that are offered both within the college and then throughout the university. I'm happy to take questions on that or challenges on that as well. Just to say a little bit then about funding, which I've set up just about as negatively as I can, because that's the trick, you lower the expectations. Any anywhere seems great. There is a change that's happened to the IRC, the Irish Science Foundation Ireland, but there will be support available. You'll hear a little bit more. Eric is going to talk in a little bit more detail about this, and I can do later. And they tend to be the best remunerated supports for you. A lot of the other things that you'll find are internal. So we have the CATS Excellence Scholarship. It only covers fees and only for 3 years, but 10 PhDs from across the college every year win one of these. And it's small assistance, but it's not nothing. It's particularly wonderful if you win one. We offer college travel bursaries and Creative Connections Award. That's accepting benefits, minor supports along the way, which add up as well. The most important thing that I'm going to say to you is because most of you will have a very strong sense of what subject area you might be considering, and that's something to hold on to at the moment in terms of what I'm about to say. The best place to find out about the funding that's available in the college is through representatives in departments. So as soon as you have any inkling that the PhD route is something that might be for you, you should be talking to prospective supervisors, people on the ground in different departments. They have all of the basic knowledge. I distilled a little bit of information: history, music, philosophy, that's Spanish, Portuguese, Latin American studies, German. There's another easy acronym. German and Italian. These are the kind of on the ground, inside departmental kind of offerings for people who might be working in different areas. Supervisors or potential supervisors will be able to direct you depending on what your subject area is, because some are awarded in particular fields and for particular emphasis on particular subjects. So that's the kind of touchstone for you in terms of finding out what you're entitled to or what you should be competing for. Finding a lead supervisor is a part of that, and there are a few things I just wanted to say about this. How many of you are already based or coming from an undergraduate or MA course in UCC? Okay, so it's probably about 50-50. There are some of you who might be coming to UCC's campus for the first time. Those of you who have a good sense of the who's who, as I've said here, will already have kind of a foot in the door. For those of you who don't, I just wanted to give you some pointers in terms of finding the ideal supervisor or supervision team. You probably have chanced upon somebody from UCC through research that you've done already. The name will be familiar. You might have even shared a few moments of email communications and found that person. Ideally, have a reasonable communication with that person. It might be face-to-face, or it could be through Teams or some other mechanism. But do contact that person and make sure that the subject that you're thinking of developing is going in the right direction, that it has a certain strength, the right size and scope of a PhD project, and that person is the right supervisor. Sometimes there's a bit of mixing and matching between supervisors into teams so that we ensure you have the best possible people leading you through the project. Use your subject as a starting point and do departmental searches. This is kind of the first major research you're going to do prior to the research project itself. And it's worth doing properly, okay? Supervisors take this task very, very seriously. It's a long and rather intimate intellectual relationship over 4 years. Everybody wants to get it right and set up properly from the get-go. So start those conversations now. They recommend things you should be reading or considering now before you walk in on day one. Another angle in here is something that's worth if you want to take a photograph of that, because I know it's long. Postgraduate Researcher Community at University College Cork is the web page that CACS has set up. And on that you'll find listed probably about 70% of our current PhD students are listed there. They're listed in terms of keywords based on their research, but so are their supervisors, their email address, which they willingly put on the website. And that's basically open to you to follow up with people whose research interests might overlap with yours, and especially to talk to them about what their experience has been. I'm confident enough that everybody you talk to there will give you very positive feedback on what their experience has been in UCC. It's too big a thing to gamble on. You need somebody telling you this. Come on board here. Come on board with the right supervisors, and you will be brought on this journey absolutely appropriately, okay? And in a way that satisfies and gives you everything you need. I have no idea of how much time I've used, but I think I'm probably 10.
Okay.
So I'm here like Orla until the end, and Eric will say things. We all overlap a little bit, but delighted to take any questions afterwards. Okay. Thanks, Emil.
Thanks very much, Barry. I always want to do a PhD myself after that. So Eric is going to talk us through funding now from more of a College of Science Engineering perspective. Thanks, Eric.
Thanks, Áine. So I will say as well, I'm going to kind of follow on to what Barry said as well. There's probably not an overlap. I've tried to keep it generic as I possibly could, but the audience, or what I was told, was most of you here are probably coming from a master's background and interested in doing a PhD. Are there anybody coming from an undergraduate background interested in doing a PhD? There's one or two. So again, you don't need to do a master's to do a PhD. You go straight into it from undergraduate as well. Okay. You're probably finding yourselves in this situation where you want to either go get a job, want to do a PhD, and I put the third one, even though there is 4 options really, but for me, the fourth option isn't really a route, which is unemployment. Okay. So you can upskill. Okay. So it might come through an undergraduate and say, right, you know what now, I've done the top master's program, but I think I want to go into this. I want to pivot into something else, and that's perfectly fine as well. So you do have options. You don't have to go down the PhD road, although I am going to talk about the PhD today. Okay. So yeah, the PhD. Yeah, it's a funny one. You know, when you're to do it or not to do it, that is the question, okay? It isn't for everybody, and I will say this. You know, a PhD is a serious challenge. It's a serious undertaking. I had a student years ago who came in from physics. He was down at Tyndall. He had a disaster the first year. He hated his PhD, and he pivoted to my group. He came into my group. I was doing stuff on life sciences, so he got interested in biosensors. So I was working with a physicist, converting him into biology and doing stuff with sensors and enzymes. He loved it. Now he's working for a bank in the UK. Go figure. But it wasn't that. It was really because he was able to tackle, and he's on a 6-figure sum as well. He's doing very well in London. But it was because he was able to take on a serious challenge in the PhD. They weren't interested in what the topic was. They just wanted him as a person because he had a drive. He was really keen. You could see this guy that was highly motivated. He completed a serious undertaking, and that's what they wanted. They wanted him. Okay? So, PhD, so yeah, I said marriage, you do. Okay, you want to do this, you're here. Otherwise, you wouldn't be here if you didn't want to do it. There's a few areas here, like the what. I think Barry talked a lot about the what, the who, really important. The where, you know, the how, and the how you're going to fund it. So, Orla talked about typically 4.3 for steps, 4.8, 4.2, depending 4 years, okay? Some people calculate notation, also it's going to take 3 years, I'll be getting out and so on. Yeah, if you have masters, you have a chance of doing that, okay? Otherwise, it is 4 years, 4 or 5 years. Who your supervisor is, that is critical, and I'll touch on that in a second, because that is really, really important, especially the area of research you're doing. Without you being invested in it, the odds of you succeeding, not good. The physics student who was in there, he thought it was going to be brilliant. It wasn't for him what he was doing, but he still got the PhD and he finished it, okay? So what is it you want to do? You know what you want to do when you have an idea of the project, so that's you coming in, you know you want to do something, but it's then translating that into an actual project, getting the right supervisor, getting the right research group to kind of, have that invested, that you're doing the same thing. So the interests have to be aligned, okay? Where do you want to do it? Do you want to stay in Ireland? Do you want to do it here in UCC? Obviously, we'd love to have it in UCC, but then there's the funding. Are you bringing your own funding? As a student, just started with Pfizer's. Initially, Pfizer were going to pay him. Now he's going to self-fund himself. So you have to be motivated. You have to be someone. Look, this is something I really, really want to do. Or you can go abroad. There's lots of opportunities, and I have links to help you with this as well. In case there are, if you don't want to go here, there are opportunities to go elsewhere as well. But the who is really important. I think Barry said this. You have to be able to look up people, see who you want to, to be your supervisor. My very first PhD student was a girl from Malaysia. She got a scholarship from the Malaysian government. She could have went anywhere. Okay? She reached out to a number of people in Ireland. I was one of them. She reached out to 3 people that I know of who are more senior. This is my first PhD student. I was a postdoc in Timberland. Okay? She reached out to professors. I responded to her. Okay? I was hungry as well. I wanted a student. And I responded, and because I responded to her quickly, she came to me. Okay? She got a number of papers. She's my most highly cited student in terms of papers. And she is now working as a lecturer back in Malaysia. Okay? So it's the who. The who is really important. You need to have that fit. That's why I put the key here. It is the key to your success as a student. If you don't get the right supervisor, your life will be hell. I guarantee you, your life will be not as you want it to be. If you get the right person, you click with that person, you can be plain sailing. And again, it is a symbiotic relationship. Okay? The supervisor, they're doing it for their reasons as well. But you have your reasons. One of the lessons I learned early on as well is it's not my PhD, it's your PhD. Okay? But as a supervisor, I'm investing in that because I want you to succeed. I want you to be better than me. You're a specialist in that area. Okay? You're going to be the one that's really focused on getting the PhD done. I will help you and assist you and mentor you, guide you through the process because it is a journey. It's your journey. You're the one that's steering the ship. I'm there to course correct to make sure you don't crash into any rocks. Okay? But you're the one that's in charge. You're the captain. Okay? And one of the things I was told as well when I did my PhD, my focus was on my PhD. I was 100%, my time was focused on my PhD. I have 7 PhD students. I'm not focused 100% on each one of those PhD students. I have other things to do as well. If they get 5 to 10% of my time, that's a lot of my time. Okay? So you have to understand that too. Supervisors, they will be pulled and drawn into other things as well. But they still have time for you, but they don't have 100% of their time. Just be conscious of that. If you don't know who you want to work with, there are websites. Barry said this as well. I'm going to say it as well. There are things about how to the PhD journey, how to choose a good supervisor. I will provide the links so there. You can click into these. So PhD is not enough. Okay, there's a guide to surviving in science as well by Peter and Monahan. So there are some really good books out there if you're really interested in finding out what are the successes and how you can actually get a good supervisor and what are the traits to look for. So you can look at this, and there's, like I said, I'll make these available. Funding. So, again, where are you looking? Are you going to go abroad? Are you going to stay in Ireland? There's lots of opportunities now. Orla talked about it, Barry talked about IRC and SFI now merging into Ireland, Research Ireland, which is here. There's the Innovate for Ireland program. This is currently open here. There's an application deadline for the 19th of March, 4 years PhD funding. Lots of opportunities. I'm talking about SEFs, so I'm looking at all these different things here. So there's food science, business, or food science, chemistry, physics, engineering. All of these form within the Innovative and the remit of Ireland, Research Ireland. So there's lots of opportunities. That's what I want to say. Okay. There are 3 programs. There's this thing called Ice Scholars. Anyone heard of Ice Scholars? The new thing that Aspire are looking at. So this Innovate for Ireland is a flagship initiative by the government. Okay, it's part of their 2030 strategy. They want to have 1,200 doctoral students coming through this program. There are 3 pillars of activity that are currently open. So you get this PhD research scholarship program, entrepreneurial leadership and innovation program, and this innovation ecosystem. So the link is here. You can click into that. That's open. There's expressions of interest now. So 19th of February, it's open until March. So So there are opportunities for funding through these three pillars, okay? There are other European opportunities as well. There's the Your Access portal, the PhD portal, and scholarship portal. So again, these are all links. I'll make these available. Click into these, and they will give you, like, there's lots of PhD opportunities. Even Tyndall will be advertising PhD opportunities. Other universities do the same thing as well in research institutes. You can go into their website, take a look at their careers, and click and apply as well. If you want to go to the UK, there's plenty of postgraduate vacancies there. Prospects UK, find a PhD. In France, you've got Campus France, Germany, research in Germany. So there's lots of opportunities. But obviously we want to promote UCC as well. Outside of Europe, you know, you can go to the US, Canada, Australia, New Zealand. Why am I just picking these countries? Primarily you can do your PhD through English, okay? Unless you want to speak a different language, you know, knock yourself out. But again, with the PhD, you know, these are the ones I would recommend. Just a helpful tip here, just check the individual university websites as well. There's plenty of PhD fellowships that are available outside of Ireland as well. These are just things to consider, so think about what you want to do. Okay, you're going beyond the PhD, where is this going to enable you? Do you want to become a lecturer? Do you want to have an academic standing? Do you want to go to industry? Find it out quicker. You're in it, like industry will, you know, they will obviously employ undergraduates, they do that. But if you want to do a master's, you'll enter into the employment at a higher level. Obviously with a PhD, you're looking at leadership levels then coming in at that stage and higher salaries as well. Talk to your lecturers, get their advice, talk to PhD students. There's going to be a panel here now in a minute, so use that experience to talk to these students, find out what their input is, what they think, their feedback, get their feedback on things. Do your research. Barry said this, the research starts now with you because what you want to do, you know, what university you want to go, where, you know, the potential supervisors, you know, the expenses, you know, it's not cheap to go abroad, probably it's cheap to be in Dublin either. Cork is a good balance, it's really, you know, accommodation, pending. If there are visa requirements, fellowships, other things. So there's lots of stuff you need to look at, okay? Even if you're applying abroad, make sure your CV is right, make sure you're making a good impression, sending out emails, things like this, okay? It is a long process, okay? It can be a slow process, so start early. This is just kind of a time frame, which kind of ties into what Orla was saying about that 4.3, 4.8. But you can plan for your applications, you can submit your fellowship proposals. And what you really should remember is, here. Yeah, it's about having a plan, okay? You're not the one writing the proposal. In most of the cases, you're going to need somebody to help you with that. The supervisor is going to help you. You know, it's not you're going to go solo. I think I had that in the slide previously about going alone. You're not going alone with an application. If you're applying into, you know, Research Ireland or like previously with IRCs, you're not going to just submit an application without somebody like me reading it and giving you advice and helping you, correcting it and steering you in a direction that we know will help you get the funding. Okay? And a lot of times we are the ones that write the projects. We have the European grants, Orla touched on this earlier, especially in SETS. There's lots of opportunities. We're constantly trying to bring in research funding where we can use to do PhD projects as well. So it's not about you writing the proposal, you write it with somebody else. You find the supervisor, you get that person to help you and invest their time as well. Because if you get it funded, it's great for the supervisor as well. Okay? Having a plan is important, but remember nothing is carved in stone. There are opportunities as well to move. So if you do feel trapped or if you're unhappy, there's lots of opportunities. Be prepared, okay? Prepared to move on things. There are things you can do as well. There's the Life of Sciences guide for new PhD students. You know, you can click on this and take you into it. There's also PhD experience. There's a lovely article on this here. There's lots of stuff on science careers just to get you thinking of where to go. There's also guides around, you know, international students. You know, how do I study abroad? What do I do? There's lots of pitfalls there as well. There's lots of good advice. You click onto these links, and it will bring you into lots of good advice where you can really help you with your decision making. It was very generic, but I kind of, again, I could have went into detail in terms of some of the PhDs that are available in different disciplines, but like sex has 9 schools, and Tyndall is in there as well, so Tyndall is huge. I mean, there's 600 researchers in there, about 120 odd PhD students. Tyndall has a dream to double their numbers to go to 1,200 within the next 3 to 4 years. So they're building 2.0. At the moment, there's going to be loads of opportunities to, you know, for students, and even with the departments of schools and everything. So, yeah,
Thanks a million. Thanks, Eric. So I think one of the key things that we've learned so far is how how important the prep work is, having the informal conversations before you ever apply for anything, identifying the area that you're interested in and identifying potential supervisors and having the conversations with them before you ever make an application to UCC. Okay, so thanks. Thanks, Ben. So what I'm going to talk about briefly is the how you actually go about applying to UCC to become a PhD student. So we've spoken about all the prep work, the funding side of it, but you actually have to sit down in front of a computer now at some stage and make an application to UCC, which we then consider. So it's just important to bear in mind a few things. So there's a minimum entry requirement academically. So you would need a 2-1 in your undergraduate degree. Obviously in a relevant discipline relevant to the subject of the PhD. And some disciplines actually require a master's level as well. So it varies, but generally speaking, you can go directly in from an undergraduate on a 2-1 into a PhD. You don't have to do a master's in the first instance. The other thing to bear in mind that if English isn't your first language, and if you haven't already completed either a level 8 or a level 9 in Ireland or another English-speaking country, then you have to prove your English language proficiency. So it's just important to bear that in mind as well. Okay. So I just want to open the English language page that I have. Yeah. So we have this web page here. It's basically the English language entry requirements into UCC to do postgrad. Some of you who are perhaps on taught postgrad programs at the moment, who have come from outside of Ireland, perhaps you've already had to submit your English language proficiency for your taught program, so you'll be very familiar with this. However, bear in mind if you successfully complete a level 8 or level 9 here in Ireland, you don't have to then do another test or exam to enter into PhD. It's proof that you've achieved a level of English through successful completion of your level 8 or 9. But anyway, it's just important to bear that in mind. So I just want to go back. Yeah. Great. The next thing I want to mention is, so we have an application platform here in UCC. There's a link, by the way, we'll give you access to all the slides. You'll have all these links. You don't have to take any notes or even photographs. We'll send all this to you. But we have an application platform here. We call it UCC Apply. There's a link there to it. So that's where you actually physically go to make your application. Don't go there until you have secured your lead supervisor. So you've had all your informal conversations. You've identified your research area. You've spoken about a proposal, and you've gotten a commitment informally from an academic or research to be your researcher, to be your lead supervisor. So this is really important. Don't make an application without first securing your lead supervisor. There is a cost to applying. It's €50 for the application. I'd recommend that you submit an application at least 3 months before your actual start date. So here in UCC we have 4 start dates for research students. You can start in October, January, April, July. So just make sure that you initiate your application well in advance of that start date, and you'll agree a start date with your lead supervisor. Remember as well, for anyone who isn't a UCC student graduate, you will be required to upload documentation like your transcript. Perhaps sometimes for our international students, you also have to upload your parchment in addition to your transcript. Proof of ID and proof of English language, and most importantly, obviously, your research proposal. Now, this does vary. Obviously, if you're a UCC graduate, you don't have to upload a lot of that documentation. We already have that on file for you. Let's just give you a flavour of what the application process might look like.
What's the next slide? Remember the link?
Yeah. So thanks a million. So this is a link to where to go. So it's just UCC apply, and then there's a section for postgrad, and it will take you directly to the application engine. You create an account, you start your application, you apply for a research program, you apply for the start date that you've agreed. You apply for your disciplinary area, so whichever subject area you're applying. If it's a PhD in microbiology, you'll select that. You'll put in all information about who your lead supervisor is. Once you submit, then you'll be asked to pay the €50, and you'll be asked then to upload any relevant documentation. There's on this page, actually, there's lots of FAQs and answers, and if you have any queries about the application process, it's all detailed there. Just go back here. So I think that's pretty much it. I'm going to stay here, so I'll be able to answer questions. We're going to hand over now to 4 of our current PhD students and 1 recent graduate who's now a postdoc, and they're going to tell you a little bit about their own personal experience in terms of identifying a PhD, finding funding, finding supervisors, and maybe a little bit as well about what the unforeseen or what the extra opportunities have come their way via becoming PhD students. So I'm going to call you guys up, and we might use the mic for this. So we have Áine, who's from biochemistry and cell biology, Nicola from computer science, Kane from film screen media. These are all current PhD students, and then we have Mia, who's a recent graduate from Eric's area of chemistry, and she's now a postdoc. And then we have Pavel from public health, correct? Okay, great. So maybe we'll start with Áine, and Áine will give us a quick overview of her own experiences. Yeah, perfect. Thanks a million, Georgie. Oh, very.
Thanks a million for introduction, Áine. So, like Áine said, my name is Áine, and I'm a final year PhD student in the School of Biochemistry and Cell Biology. I actually started out in plant biology for my undergrad in UCD, and then I did the bioinformatics masters here in UCC. And I'm currently doing a PhD in genomic data science in the field of ovarian cancer biology. So basically, I look at lots of data from ovarian cancer tumours and try to pick out insights that might help for diagnosis or treatment. So my PhD is funded by Research Ireland, formerly SFI, through a funding initiative called the Centre for Research Training in Genomics Data Science. Basically, what this was a big funding initiative that started in 2020 that employed 4 cohorts or years of PhD students. Unfortunately, recruitment for this is now closed, but there may be other kind of cohort-based Centre for Research trainings coming up in the future, so I would highly recommend keep an eye out for one of those. Áine was saying as well to talk about some unexpected experiences from our PhD, and as a computational biologist, I thought that my kind of day-to-day would be sitting in front of a computer with little to no human contact, and granted a lot of days are like that. But one kind of unexpected experience that I get to do is something called public and patient involvement, or PPI. And this is where we have workshops with people directly affected by ovarian cancer. And we get to ask them about their experiences to make sure that the research we're doing keeps the patient in mind and is relevant for them. So it's definitely an unexpected but very social aspect of the PhD that I really, really enjoy. So you kind of go in expecting to do maybe one thing, but you get to have a lot of experiences that you really wouldn't expect. In terms of advice, I think, I suppose, kind of echo what Eric was saying earlier, it's a very big undertaking to do a PhD, so it's not a decision to be taken very lightly. As Orla alluded to, the stipends are not great, even with the raise, and I'm very lucky in that I have a stipend and that it is one of the more more generous ones. So can't really say for a house or anything, so you do need to put your life on hold for 4 years for that. But I absolutely love the creativity and flexibility that doing a PhD affords, so it's worth it for me, but it is something that you do need to take into account when making that decision. And then the other piece of advice that I would have is to go for a cohort-based PhD program if you can. So something where you and a few other people are starting together, because as Barry said, it can be a very lonely process, but for me, I haven't found it to be that, because I've made some of my best friends through the PhD program that I came through. So if you can, start with a few people to kind of help you through the journey. Thank you so much for having me. Thanks, Judy.
You're very modest. You failed to mention that she won the national competition against other PhD students across the whole island for a 3-minute thesis competition. So.
My name is Nicola. I'm currently a second year PhD student with the Department of Computer Science, specifically focusing on AI and medical applications. And so my background is with all and that. My undergraduate degree is actually in psychology, and then I moved over to data science, both Netherlands, and actually applied to UCC via a website called Find a PhD, which I think we spoke about earlier as well. And similar to me, I'm also in a cohort-based PhD, so I'm part of the CFD in AI, so it's a research training in AI, which again we started with a cohort of, it's quite large, we started with about 4 PhD students, and we did 5 separate training weeks where we focused on different areas in AI to next our research also expand kind of our knowledge base in different areas that we might not be working in, which I think was very, very enriching, also because you allow you to form connections with people who might not be working in your field, and it opens up some really interesting opportunities for crossover work. In terms of advice for finding a PhD, I think for me the absolute biggest thing that I've seen throughout my journey is finding a good supervisor. And a good supervisor for you might not be a good supervisor for another person, so find someone that not only you can work with, but also you kind of have a good connection with, you're able to communicate well with, because having a good supervisor will be the make or break for your PhD. And the other thing probably is that a lot of people think PhD is about being super intelligent, which it is to a certain extent. It's also about being stubborn. It's about not being put down by a year or two rejecting your paper. It's about not being feeling bad after a bad presentation. It's being able to pick yourself up when you're not feeling the best on that day in the PhD. And then just mirroring your structure. Some of the cool things I got to do with the PhD is that I got to organize the Irish Collegiate Programming Competition, which is actually the biggest programming competition in Ireland, and I got to network with these incredible people in computer science coming in from all over the country. I've got to travel to Athens and Greece for 2 weeks for summer school, and I was actually also named one of the 30 and 30 in tech by the Irish Summer Post, which is very, very cool. Thank you.
My name is Kane. I just have come into my second year of PhD with the Department of Film and Screen Media. My project looks at cultural responses to screens in the wake of COVID-19 and all of us moving our lives and social lives onto screen technologies over that time, and how that has been affected in terms of cultural fears and anxieties, particularly through horror films. So I had a pretty, I think, direct kind of route. I knew I wanted to do a PhD while I was still doing the BA here. I had a great time in the department. I went away to do my master's in Dublin and came running back, basically. But a lot of, in terms of advice, what I get from a lot of people asking me about PhDs personally is, because all these steps have been outlined pretty well, but a lot of people don't know what to do with a PhD on subject-wise. They're like, yeah, I have an area, but I don't know what to do. And to bring it back here to find a PhD and other resources like that, a really good way to get started there is to look at what PhDs are being offered in terms of studentships and paid scholarships, especially in arts and tax, because once again it's the least funded body. So if you pay attention to what is being funded, it can be a really good kickstarter as to where there are gaps in research that you can look at. So when I came up with my project, I made sure it was kind of touching on some of those areas of cultural reactions to particular screen movements at the time, like VR and XR and AR and stuff like that. So when I pitched that to my supervisor, I think another thing to kind of touch on is how to kind of pitch something to a supervisor. So I did it as a 1,000-word document in an email, basically with my initial thing. Because a lot of people are like, what do I say? Do I just say, hey, I want to do a PhD? you might be cool for that, or like, do you send them 10,000 words to prove that, oh my god, look, I'm so ready for this, like, where do you kind of fall? And I suppose it's different for everybody, but at the same time, if it is a potential supervisor, it is about respecting their time as well, I think, a lot of the time. So I sent it as a 1,500 word document to the first person I wanted to be my supervisor, and I was just really lucky in that she took me on board straight away. In terms of opportunities given by the department, I've had a really positive experience at the time, so far, because once again, it is about really kind of measuring your expectations when working within the arts. Most of the people I know doing PhDs aren't funded. I'm not funded currently either myself, it's self-funded. But the opportunities given by the department are very aware of that, so I can give an opportunity to teach across 3 different modules so far. I also get to, anytime there's like a work opportunity in the department, they've always been very helpful in reaching out to me and offering me that. So not only am I getting experience, and I'm also getting like money there as well, but I'm also like building a nice CV to have towards the end of the project. I've also been given opportunities to take charge of the departmental reading group, which I co-run with another PhD student, and other like travel opportunities and stuff like you were saying as well. So the department have been really positive towards me that way. So I do think it is just important about measuring those expectations, plan ahead, and understand that the funding for art is so competitive. Don't think you're going to like get it, straight away, because there is time to build it over the course of what you're doing as well. So that's the advice I would give.
Hi, my name is Paul, and I'm a third-year PhD student in Doctoral Studies and National Social Research Mission, the joint project between the School of Public Health and National Social Research Foundation. And my project is looking at the evaluation of mental health service delivery during public health emergencies, like pandemic or natural disasters. And the project is based in Ireland and Australia. So I will give you a whistle tour of the journey towards the PhD. So this started in 2019 when I was doing a grad course in UCC in School of Public Health, and I took work experience, work placement position in National Social Research Foundation. And since then I actually was I am working there as a research officer. I was involved in various projects, including National Self-Harm Registry Ireland project, which I mainly work on since then. In 2022, I undertook another course in UCC, which was a master's in epidemiology and public health again, but I focused on epidemiology mainly. And after that, I was actually offered full-time position in National Social Research Foundation. So I was very happy with my position, involved in many different projects, and I was developing myself quite quickly. But then this call came in for the PhD position from the school and the National Social Research Foundation on the project which I was granted. So yeah, I applied for the project. It was funded by HRB, and I was granted that project. So I started, and that was my journey towards the PhD basically. My advice to you would be to have an idea of what you want to do and how you want to go about yourself. My idea about myself was always to work in research, in particular in health research, and then develop the plan to go about this idea and be open for any opportunities that will arise to you. So that's me.
Hi, my name is Neve. I am not a current PhD student, but past PhD student. I'm maybe someone who came about a PhD in an unusual way compared to every other people. I think he kind of had an idea that he wanted to do a PhD. I kind of ended up getting to a PhD. In college, I loved my final year project, really enjoyed research.
thought about doing a research master's and then went to Pfizer for the summer after my undergraduate in the UK to do a studentship there. And that's where I fell in love with research, and that's where I realised I wanted to do a PhD. Everyone I was working with had a PhD, and it was a really different context to what we see in academia. So when I came back, I started my research master's with my supervisor that I did my final year project with, and went about trying to get funding to stay for a PhD. So 10 months into my PhD, I received funding through the National University of Ireland, which is actually one of the ones that wasn't mentioned in that presentation, but they currently are open at the moment applications for PhD scholarships in the humanities as well as in the sciences. So if you're interested and you have a supervisor in mind, the application closes on the 28th of March. They also fund my fellowship, hence the advertising. So I completed my PhD here in UCC, and I think my biggest piece of advice around a PhD is you need to make sure you know why you are doing it. If you're here because you like the idea of having doctor in front of your name, that is not going to get you through 4 years plus. You really need to love the subject you're doing. I think the pillars of a PhD as an individual are passion, resilience, and persistence. It is a roller coaster, and anyone who's ever done a PhD or anyone who's doing a PhD will know that. The highs are high, but the lows can be low. So just be prepared for that. It's been mentioned a lot, that kind of relationship between you and your supervisor. The only way to describe that is a relationship. It's your life really. It's not necessarily even 4 years. You kind of stick together. And that kind of 4 years of building a relationship, a friendship, a professional working relationship is integral to the experience of a PhD. And building that and maintaining that is a huge part of the PhD experience. But I don't think spoken about all that much of these things, but finding someone that you also link with. So if you're doing interviews, for example, it's not just them getting to know you, you also need to know them, because it is that relationship, that working relationship, so it gets the PhD done, not just someone being able to power on through. And for anyone who is thinking about doing a PhD, it is not anything to do with your intellect. Don't believe that for a second. It is all about how hard you can work and being able to persevere through challenges as well as the highs, because it comes with lots of highs. I think back to my PhD and it was an ultimately hugely positive experience, even though it was during COVID. So really try to embrace the fun bits, like the travelling for a conference, like getting to know friends, as well as like diversifying your experience. The Odyssey program is something that's really big here in UCC. It's been rolled out nationally now. And the biggest piece of advice I took from that is about trying to get people who are doing PhDs to think about kind of outside of academic careers. It's only 4% of people who have a PhD will end up in academia. And it's trying to build your skill set outside of the academic. So once you have that level 10 qualification, what else is special about you? So trying to like get involved in clubs and societies, like representation, winning different competitions, and trying to like enjoy yourself outside of just the lab setting or the library, and trying to build that balance and that like being able to take yourself out of situations that are stressful too. I think whenever your research maybe isn't working, it's really nice to be able to have something else you can go to, as a club or representation, or teaching, for example. So just trying to build yourself to be the best fully encompassing person, not just fully dead set in your PhD. I think it's really important. And just evaluate now what value a PhD would bring to your life. And write it down somewhere when you're starting, because you need to read that quite often.
Thanks so much for those insights, hugely valuable. We're going to open it up to questions now. So anyone who has a question, we'll do our best to answer the question. Anyone? Oh, I see, yeah, up there. I'd say it's more 7, would it be? Just kidding. Do one of you want to take that? Nicola? Yeah.
I think it largely depends on who you are and how you work best. So for me, I said at the beginning that I was going to try to avoid working weekends as much as possible, to do a 40-hour work week. So I work 8 hours a day. I come in around 8 to 9 and go home at 5, and that's how I work. But I know people who that doesn't suit, and they maybe do 6 hours every day, or they do 5 hours every day, or they do 3 hours and hyper focus. It just, you need to know who you are and how you work best, would be my answer.
Yeah, that makes sense. That makes sense. It's quite subjective, but yeah, you should kind of think of it as a job, as a full-time job, as Orla said earlier. Yeah, definitely not something you do part-time, I would say. Yeah.
Just in terms of modules, for the structured PhD, which is not the named PhD, not the clinical side of dentistry, you do 15 credits. That's usually around 3 courses over the period of your PhD. So you probably have a class a week for 1 semester every year, something like that.
Mm.
And like, do you get the summers off? Is it the way students would, or is it full time?
Full time.
Officially, you get 21 days off a year. Is the official.
Yeah, that's something that you would, again, this is where the relationship with your lead supervisor is so important, because, you know, at the outset you'll talk about things like this when you're taking your holidays, you know, but you are entitled to take holidays, of course you are. Yeah, but that's something you negotiate with your supervisory team. Yeah. Yeah. Hi, sorry.
So here you all talked about the relationship between student or PhD student with their like supervisor. So with their supervisor, and I just want to know about from your experience, what's that thing that actually led you to choose your supervisor apart from his profile? But if you like go through the one's profile, you might not know about him like personally or something about his work ethic or anything else. But as you have to work with him for like 4 years or sometimes more, then what that quality that you cannot compromise for choosing a supervisor or something like that?
You had a kind of an interesting route, Kane. You know, you at your undergrad level, you identified something.
Definitely, yeah. So I kind of had an interest in certain research areas, and I had a lecturer from my BA who taught a lot of those modules that centered on those research areas. And she was the first kind of lecturer I reached out to, kind of outside of like how do we submit the paper, you know, like I actually reached out and I was like, oh, I really like this and I really like what you're doing, and just got talking that way. And then when COVID hit, I finished my BA during COVID. You know, we didn't really see each other or anything, and I actually just bumped into her in the street as well. A couple of years later, while I was doing my masters, we just got talking, and I just really remember how much we got along during the BA. So I think if you have any bit of a personal connection with who could be your supervisor beforehand, it goes an awful long way, because you're not just dealing with someone as a pool of resources or as someone from which you can gain academic advice. It's someone that you need to be able to be comfortable sitting down in a room with and talking about, and like that's 4 years of your time. Like if you find halfway through that you don't really like the supervisor, that can be tough. Like because there is a personal element to it there. So I'm really lucky that I kind of knew beforehand with this potential supervisor that we got along. So when I met up with her, we talked for like 2 hours about what we could do if I became like I took on a PhD with her and everything, and it really paid off like as well. Like because she was my first person I reached out to, and I think we didn't have that connection first. And she might have said yes, you know, there's more to it than like for example, she doesn't like horror movies. Why? You know, but for example, like I have already done that in my master's and stuff, and I needed help with the technological aspects of it, and that screen culture, and that's where she brought that expertise. So it ended up being a really good fusion anyway, stuff like that. So I think really looking into them as more than just an academic center point. Like really look for people that you think that you might get along with personally, and it will really stand to you.
One of the things that I thought Ken was going to say, because he mentioned it during his talk, was talk to the supervisor's other students and get a sense of what are their boardings, are they weekend people, are they evening or morning, and ask those questions, put those out there to your supervisor when you're having those initial discussions. You know, ask the tough questions and get a sense of are they being favourably welcomed and whether or not there's a clear answer.
Yeah, definitely personal connection is really important. When I finished my BA here in UCC, one summer's evening I was cycling along College Road and I bumped into a professor from my undergrad whom I had done a project with, and you know, went quite well, and we had conversations about the subject matter. And so I bumped into him on my bike bike, and he just said, "Oh, and what are you up to now?" And I was like, "I don't know, I was thinking of doing a research master's." And it popped into my head. I had been obviously thinking at some level about it, but I popped into him and we had a chat, and I told him what I was interested in, and you know, I went on and I did an MPhil. But it's not all about the academics. It's about making the connections and having shared interests and just developing that relationship, because having a really good supervisory team around you will really stand to you. So it's that personal connection and just making just human connection too. So it's not all about the academics. It's about making the connections too and building a good relationship. Yeah. I didn't go on to do the PhD. I'll eventually do that.
I'm hearing more and more stories about supervisors going to their supervisees' weddings. So I think that would be, is this something you'd like at your wedding? And work forward.
You could end up having supervisors assigned to you already, like, you know, that's what was my case. I came on ready project, so everything was set up for me. So, and I have 4 supervisors, but only 2 of them are actually engaging with me. So, and I'm lucky actually that one of them, my main supervisors, I know him very well, and we have been working together. So it could be a situation when you will be working with someone you don't know, and will be given to you, like, you know, and you still have to work your way out. You can take other supervisors on your project, but there is a process with that, involved with that.
Oh, hi. So my question is building up on the previous question, that what to look for when you're looking for a supervisor, but more so like the difficult question of how to navigate maybe supervisors that you do like initially, and then you do research about them, they are not maybe a fit for you. How do you navigate maybe stepping back from that, or then as it's been mentioned that they are supervising or engaging with you or not engaging with you, how do you kind of navigate in a professional setting that you're not burning bridges?
Are you talking about when you're already a PhD student and you have a supervisory team and perhaps you need to change one of the supervisors? Or are you talking about the initial conversation where you have an idea and you start a conversation with one person, but then you realize, no, it's actually a different person I should be talking to?
It's kind of both, like if it's initially, or as you mentioned that you're coming into a PhD and you don't have a choice.
Yeah, I think it's a brilliant question. I wouldn't worry about it, that's the first thing. I think supervisors are very used to, and we've all had this terrible situation where we're talking to people who might come on board, and especially Kat, this happened to me only last year. I was talking to a girl from Turkey for about 8 months, and she got a huge scholarship. She was brilliant, and we had so many conversations, and she felt so bad. She got a huge scholarship in Canada, and she should apologise. I said, look, you don't have to apologise. That's absolutely what happens. So that's, I think we kind of know that, so don't worry about it. Just be accountable. Some of the possibility of coming on board as a supervisor, on a supervision team, or always keep all of your relationships once established open, because the research fields, even in bigger areas, are very small. You'll meet those people again, but there's no offense. There's never any problem.
I think add on to that, I think what I would say at the beginning was transparency. So I was at a point where I had kind of 3 different offers I was navigating. I think they finished studies and I have 2 other offers. Here's what I'm considering them. I'm not going to lie to you, I don't want to keep you hanging, this is why I'm not stopping right away. So I think just don't burn bridges, just be honest and open. It's never a matter of, well, I'm not taking you because I don't like you, it's just, I'm not taking you because I'm better finding out more interesting research field.
Hello there, my name is Robbie, and I'm in 3rd year undergraduate of zoology. And my question is, and it's been one I've been thinking about for quite some time, is how to actually think of the project you're going to do for the next 4 years. Because for me, I'm interested in animal behavior and trying to, I want to be out in nature working with the animals. But I have no idea what kind of animals I want to go after, because I have a love for all of them, or even which continent I want to So how do you figure that out, and how do you know or think that that might be the right decision?
Yeah, so Eric has the answer there for you.
You're in third year, right?
Yeah.
So I mean, you'll be doing a project next year. You get to do a research project next year. So the way you're going to find out where you fit in terms of the research and what you want to do is by reading. You go out, you read articles, journals, book chapters. You'll find out who are the people doing the research, and that might actually lead to other things in that you might go, oh God, I didn't realize they were doing that. That's pretty cool. I'd love to do something on that line. So it's all about reading, expanding your knowledge base, and you're going to get an opportunity to do a little bit of that next year because you have a final year project, and that'll give you a little bit of taste for research. So doing a good literature review, reading, I can't stress enough, like it's all about knowledge. You have to be able to read, put some time aside. I say this as well to my own PhD students, they should be reading a paper every week because you have to expand your knowledge, because there's people out there doing research and they can be doing the same thing that you're doing. So what the state of the art is and how you're evolving the state of the art is a really important part of the PhD. One thing we didn't touch on actually, Barry, is that when you're doing a PhD, this is a little bit of this is gold dust, okay? There are only 3 criteria that we actually look at when we are awarding a PhD, okay? The first one is it's your work. Okay, so it has to be your work. You're the person that does the work. Okay? The second criteria is it innovative? Okay, what are you doing that's pushing boundaries of knowledge? Okay? What's new and novel about what you're doing? Alright? And the third one, which is linked to the second, is it of publishable quality? It doesn't mean it has to be published, but can it be published? Okay? So they're the 3 criteria. If you can satisfy all 3 of them, you will be awarded a PhD. And if you can defend that in the Viva, and that's what the Viva is all about, the Viva Voce, that's just your opportunity to talk about your work. So you guys down there, that you're coming towards your final years of PhD, that's all you have to do. When you go to your Viva, you're presenting the work, you're telling the examiners, basically, this is what I've been doing, this is my body of work, this is why it's special, this is why it's great. So you'll find out that answer as you progress through. Right now, you've got lots of questions. You're probably questioning what animal I want to, or whatever. So reading is key. You have to just get out there and see what other people are doing. What is the state of the art? What is the literature telling you? And then you can be clever. You can talk to a supervisor, identify gaps. And that's where the innovation lies. And a lot of the novelty happens at the interface between disciplines. So because you're studying zoology now, you might find something in it. You might make a bridge in another discipline and collaborate with another supervisor and then get that multidisciplinary aspect going. So there are loads of opportunities. It's just about being steered in the right direction as well and having conversations.
I think also key is to maybe look for any work-related or voluntary opportunities that will give you cold-face, hands-on experience of working in different environments that might help you make a decision as well. Yeah. There's a gentleman just behind you.
I just have another question about the politics of supervisor selection again in terms of I'm doing a master's at the moment in politics and public psychology and I'm doing my thesis. The supervisor is brilliant,
supervisory team, but it is possible you could have 4. But the minimum is 2 UCC academic and research staff on your team. But above and beyond that, then you can have external expertise as well, with agreement from the whole team. And then how the tug of war and all that, that's down to interpersonal and expertise. Sorry, Carla.
Yeah, just as a kind of slight aside to that, and it is a question I've been asked more than once. People have said, is the supervisor or the institution more important? And without a shadow of a doubt, the supervisor is the most important part of it. You know, different universities have different renown and different names, but the important thing is getting you through the process and with the right person. And you'll know that because as you kind of part of what I infer from your question is, one of the things the supervisor will do is tell you, this is not going to work. Stop right now. It's not going to go any further, and by the time it lands in 4 years from now, it's going to be dead in the water. They'll be able to point, that's a test, in, first and foremost, the level of expertise. If that person will know what's hot, what's starting to get going, what will be happening in the league, and will give you direction on that. Be ready to have your proposal modified, as long as you're not being pushed into a totally different area. But that's a part of the conversation that will really help you find the track.
Yeah, and a good supervisor as well will open doors. So we have a better chance of being able to engage somebody external with a supervisor driving that for you as well. Because they might listen to them, they're probably experts in their field, they probably know you and you know them. So, I mean, it's all about having that relationship with the supervisor to say, look, if there is external expertise that's required, the supervisor will know that as well. And I have PhD students came with a background in engineering, we were doing a forensics project. I brought in an external supervisor from the Forensics Institute, not a bother. And it was a fantastic experience for both me and the students as well. So I mean, don't be afraid to ask. And the supervisor, if they're good, they identify that as well. It's all about opportunities. They might have another opportunity to engage that external person.
And it needn't all be as formal as supervision teams.
And to be an advisor.
Exactly. The supervisor should also introduce you to people at conferences, give you emails to people you should write to. Supervisor will be your main referee afterwards when it comes to writing applications for you. So there's a lot that matches to be important for you. Thank you.
Can you talk more about the modification process of a proposal? You have a proposal and then everyone's sort of deciding this is
going terribly, or it's, I think you said it, things are burning really down. So how does the modification of the proposal process work? Or is that different?
If there's writing a proposal for
No, if you're in it and your
like
team is saying like you think you should start to pivot, or you yourself are feeling like I need this to pivot to shift research directions.
There are safeguards built in, so I mean you have your progress reviews, and you have an external you have a panel reviewer looking at your progress, and they'll know if things aren't. I think they'll talk to you as well, and they'll talk to the supervisory team. And if things aren't kind of working out the way you thought, and if there is a pivot, it'll be brought up early. And it's good to catch that earlier in the process, because if you leave that to later, it becomes a bigger issue. Because maybe you should have, like I had that guy that knows physics, and he spent 1 year doing something. He just thought, oh, this is not for me, and he needed to pivot quickly. So he completely had a complete change in supervisory team. He parked that and started again. So you can have those moments because it has to fit with you. It's not my PhD; it's your work. It's your PhD. If you're not right, if it's something that's not going according to your plan, you have to take charge. Advisors have a great saying. They say, own it, take ownership of it. You have to take ownership of it as well.
Yeah, it's just important to reiterate what Eric said, that as a PhD student you have a minimum one formal progress review every year. So things like that should be caught early in order to enable a pivot of direction in terms of the work or change in supervisory team.
Like you have your research plan after 3 months, and if that's something that's causing, if there's a flag or a red, always go with your gut. If it's not telling you, if it's screaming that, this is way too much, this is not what I want to do. I don't want to do this. I'm being pushed into this corner. I have no interest in this.
subject, an area that you're passionate about. How wonderful is that? I mean, you actually don't get those opportunities too much in life, trust me. So, you know, if you're passionate, it's wonderful to then have the space and opportunity to develop that passion.
And you don't see it as work. You actually
Yeah.
don't. I mean, if you ask myself and Barry how many hours a week we work, you're probably shocked, you know, in terms of what like we don't get paid half what we probably do for the day. But
Anyway, that's for another.
There's one more question, one last question.
Yeah.
The red t-shirt.
Hello, I'm a master's student in finance, banking risk management, and I'm just going through the program that UCC offers. I saw that there is a PhD in finance in general. If I wish to choose some specific topic under finance, then is there any option that UCC provides?
So you can choose any topic under the discipline of finance.
Okay.
And what you need to find then is a supervisor in your area that has knowledge and does research on that topic. So we can supervise a PhD in anything that is the expertise of our staff. So you're looking for the staff.
Good. And my other question is, like, while pursuing the master's studies, can I opt for a PhD?
What type of masters are you doing?
I'm doing master's, 1 year master's course.
1 year, 12 masters.
12 masters, MA, is it?
Yeah, yeah.
And does it convert?
It's MSc.
Yeah, no, I think is what you're asking is while you're currently a postgrad taught master's student, can you now apply for a PhD at the same time?
Yeah, like currently I'm doing my master's studies.
Yeah.
So if I can apply for PhD.
You can.
you just kind of started at the same time.
No,
You
you can apply for a PhD while completing your taught masters if you've done all of the preparatory work in identifying an area that you want to do your PhD in and a potential lead supervisor. And if they say, like for example, you're currently registered master's student, so you should be finishing your program August, September probably, your dissertation. So then you may enter into a conversation with somebody that you've identified as a potential supervisor to start a PhD perhaps in October. And you can initiate the application process already.
Yeah. I'd like to just add on to that. It's actually a really good opportunity for you to identify and might be supervisor for your master thesis. So like current PhD supervisor supervising the master thesis is a really good way to kind of check how well you work with them and how well you like overlap those interests.
And just one point on that as well, I put it up on my slide about planning early. So if you are a master's student and you are going to finish in September next year, okay, and you leave in September to go looking for a supervisor, it's going to be another year before you start a PhD. So if you are interested in doing a PhD now or next year, now is the time to be looking at it, because identify the supervisor, get the funding in place. You can apply for these calls, still doing your masters, but the outcomes will take 6 months. You won't know. So if those calls are finishing in March for the IUA and for the Research Ireland, those calls will be closed in March. You won't hear the outcome of them probably until July, August. Okay?
And so start early.
So start early. So you might have them to start in October, or as Áine said, there's a January, April, and a July start as well. So a lot of students, if they are applying, they might actually start with the January intake and give themselves a little 2 months break from the thesis, because I just done a master thesis. You might need a bit of a break as well. Other people frustrated. Okay? It depends on what you want to do. Do not leave it to the very end, because then you're looking at least 6 to 9 months before you start, and you've got a lot of time.
Okay, I'm just conscious we're gone over time. That's a good thing. I want to thank you all very much for coming today. I want to especially thank our students and our recent graduate panel, the dean, the vice deans, Ben in the corner, who's done an amazing job, and to you for coming today. Thanks so much.
Thank you.
Are you deleting them off that then, is it?
Is there something for us in about
the slides?
Yeah.
They will be kept.
Oh, I'd say delete them. Delete them, yes. I'll leave on your PDF version. Just delete mine anyway.
Thank you much.
Just delete my one because I don't like leaving them on this. Just,
no, of course.
Yeah, just delete them.
There would be a specific staff number that they're with, but I can delete them.
Oh yeah, just delete them because I'll send a PDF version. Perfect, thank you.
Thank you much.